What's up, everybody? This is Dan Thompson from RoundTheAssociation.com, and this is the Round the Association podcast, the Here We Go edition. And yes, I did name this one the Here We Go edition because there's an old saying in the UFC when you watch enough fights, and Joe Rogan is known for saying this when a fight starts, and he goes, "Here we go." So, this afternoon, after getting back from watching Wendell Carter's workout today and speaking with him, which I'll do a podcast on today, the news broke that Adrian Wojnarowski, among other different news, I think Jabari Young was one that first broke it, that Kwahi Leonard has now requested a trade away from San Antonio. Woj then reported that the Lakers would be the ideal target and where he wants to go. Being from Los Angeles, that is probably the most likely option. That where he wants to go, that's the most likely option where he'll be traded. Like I said, Jabari Young was the one to break the story earlier today, so let's go ahead and give him his props first. So, with that being said, Kwahi Leonard and the Los Angeles Lakers have been dancing for a while. So for those who don't know the entire Kwahi Leonard story, let's break it down. Kwahi Leonard got hurt last season in the NBA playoffs, actually in the Western Conference Finals last year against the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors were getting blown out in Game 1. I think it was almost a 20-point lead. Kawhi goes down. A series changes, and the Spurs get swept because with Kawhi being out for the rest of the series, it didn't matter. The Spurs had nothing left. The Warriors destroyed them in 4 games. So, fast forward. Over the summer, an injury that was similar to Tony Parker's. The Spurs thought it was going to be a good, probably first half of the season because Tony Parker took about maybe 7-8 months to get himself back going. So, the Spurs thought the first half of the season. Well, Kawhi came back, played 9 games, re-injured himself, and pretty much was done for the rest of the season. On the backside of things, the Spurs and Kawhi's people, led by Dennis Robertson, didn't agree eye to eye on how this whole process happened, including rehab, rehabilitation, and the fact of the Spurs didn't really understand why Kawhi was still hurt because Tony Parker was only out X amount of time, so they assumed that Kawhi was not trying to be there. Kawhi ends up staying away from the team, workout and rehabbing in New York, being away from the team for the majority of the rest of the season, and it didn't even show up during the playoff series where Spurs lost in the playoffs this year. Well, fast forward now. The team and Kawhi had not spoken in a while, and Tim Duncan, Popovich, R.C. Buford, and I think Tim Duncan were reportedly in New York in the last couple of days to talk to Kawhi, try to convince him. The Spurs had the Supermax on the table, and the Supermax is the humongous offer, which is over $200 million over a 5-year period, which is more than any other team could offer in free agency this summer. Kawhi turned it down and informed the team that he no longer wants to be a Spur and wants to be traded. Now, it's kind of a good news situation for the Spurs. I say it's a good news situation because the draft is not until Thursday. And what that means is that the Spurs can actually start acquiring picks in this year's draft. Unlike some situations when players ask for trades during the summer, the team doesn't have a chance to make any type of moves before the draft, maybe acquire draft picks in that draft. You're looking at towards guys that are already on rosters by then. So you got to give Kawhi's people a little bit of something for just requesting this. But on the flip side of things and on the broader scale, it's not good when a top 5 to 7 player in the league, overall player in the league, wants out. It's not a good look. And even with Pop going up there's nothing Pop could have even done to save the situation. It had gotten that bad. The relationship was really icy between Kawhi's people and the Spurs, and now we're in trade mode. So, Kawhi, like I said, Woj's report today had broke that Leonard's preferred destination is Los Angeles to be a Laker. Now, Kawhi is from the LA area, so he has all the LA roots, and of course, who doesn't know about the Lakers growing up in Los Angeles? Now, the Lakers have a lot of pieces to return in any type of deal. Brandon Ingram is, I would assume, be the top of the list. Kyle Kuzma will be somewhere on this list. Even Lonzo Ball, if you're just looking at actual prospects, not dealing with family issues, but just about overall prospects. Lonzo Ball. The Lakers, like I said, have a lot of talent to give up. Now, the only thing the Lakers do not have this year is a draft pick because the draft pick was traded in the deal that happened with the Celtics and ended up in the Sixers' hands. So it was a weird, convoluted trade, but their first-round pick for the Lakers do not belong to them. They do have their 2019 first-round pick, but who knows how much value that pick has at this point because if the Lakers, let's just say, trade for Kawhi Leonard and add a guy like LeBron James and maybe Paul George, that pick will not be worth next to nothing. It'll be a late first-round pick next year. And the Spurs kind of want to be able to retool now as Greg Popovich, he finishes up his last few years of his coaching career if that's what he decides to do. Now, on the flip side of things, There are other teams that could potentially look at. You look at now the Clippers being a team in LA. It's the LA market. It's still home. It's not as not as high power as the Lakers. And Kawhi's a kind of a laid back guy, so it's being at home. And it's not exactly it's like little brother compared to big brother. Now the Clippers, on the hand, have guys like Tobias Harris you can offer, but the Clippers also have the 12th and 13th overall picks in this draft coming up next week. So the Spurs could really load up on two young guys with a small forward. They could also interchange out at the same time. They could play the 3 and the 4 in Tobias Harris. Now, the Clippers would also, have a guy, Kwahi Leonard, that could potentially keep DeAndre Jordan to stay in town. And you have Danilo Gallinari on the team. And the Clippers have a nice little start with Patrick Beverley coming back off the injury. Now, the Clippers win a championship? No, but you could also clear some assets, and maybe try and make a run at Paul George or a run at LeBron James, maybe, if that seems to be an option for the Clippers, if they're able to land, like I said, a guy like Kawhi Leonard's Super League talents. Now, Dennis Pendleton, his uncle, has said that Kawhi wants to play in New York. So Knicks fans are going to jump on their seats, but then you realize what the Knicks have to offer. The Knicks are not trading Kristaps Porzingis. Well, what's left? Well, you have Frank Ntilikina, who's their first their point guard, their French point guard they drafted last year, which is now turning into a shooting guard, which is a hot commodity by a lot of guys in the league, and a guy who could fit the Spurs system perfectly because he is a very good defender and very active. They have a 9th overall pick. In that pick range, you're looking at potentially Wendell Carter. You're looking at Trae Young if he slides that far. Michael Porter Jr. if he slides that far down lower. You have both of the Bridges boys, one Michigan State and Villanova, Kevin Knox, or maybe Colin Sexton. You have a bunch of options there at the 9th overall pick if you take it. And the Knicks can really throw in a future first-rounder and maybe a Tim Hardaway Jr. or something else to fill salary cap space. Now, the good thing about Kawhi Leonard's contract is that it's not a supermax deal. I think it's around $19 million. So it wouldn't have to cost as many flexible salary cap pieces to make it work. But the Knicks are an option because he wants to be there. Now, let's look at some teams that are not on the list, but that could make some moves. You look at the Boston Celtics, a team that has more assets than anybody else. We saw Jaylen Brown. We saw Jason Tatum last year in the playoffs. Both those guys and Terry Rozier, a combination of those guys are going to hit the bench because Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward come back from injuries. So I don't see the Celtics in any situation putting Jason Tatum on the bench, but they do need somebody at the power forward position because I'm not sure if Tatum's going to be able to be effective at power forward the full season going forward. And, like I said, Terry Rozier was phenomenal in the playoffs last year. He's going to have to go back to the bench because Kyrie Irving is back, and who knows what they're going to do with Marcus Smart. Now, any team that trades for Kawhi Leonard more likely will have to make sure Kawhi signs the extension, because they're not going to give up all your assets for a guy that's going to walk away next July and you end up with nothing at the table. It's the same thing Paul George did with Indiana. Are you really willing to give up long-term pieces to a puzzle that a guy might not sign the contract? Now, Philadelphia 76ers are in play. Now, he did mention the Sixers as an option. The Sixers have Dario Saric. You have Markelle Fultz. You have the 10th overall pick, Robert Covington. You have a whole bunch of younger pieces there. And if you trade a lot of those pieces for Kawhi, they still maintain the cap space just in case they want to chase a guy like, I don't know, LeBron James. I don't know if you want to chase Paul George, or you want to chase the outside shooting that you need and also get some legitimate depth across the board. That's something that the Spurs can do. And not to mention you have the Brett Brown factor as well, too, because Brown coached Kawhi in San Antonio. Outside of those 5 options, it's a mixed match and a hodgepodge of who would try to trade for him. Because from what the reports are coming out is that Kawhi wants to be in a bigger market. With Kawhi wanting to be in a bigger market, it takes away from a lot of the options that are presented to the table. Other big option teams that you can really just count out right now, Chicago is one of the largest markets in the country. Not happy the Bulls don't have enough assets. The Bulls have the assets, but the Spurs are going to take the assets, and Kawhi's not going to sign long-term there, which is the most important thing. I mean, the Timberwolves can offer Andrew Wiggins, among other players, but I don't think Kawhi wants to spend his winters in in Minneapolis playing in a system that runs down his players in Tom Thibodeau's system. So, I mean, Denver has assets they can trade for days, but like I said, is Kawhi going to sign long-term in Denver? Of course, he'd be a good fit in Utah. I mean, Kawhi Leonard would be a good fit anywhere. But it's just that who has the assets they want to give up to get back Kawhi? I'm sorry, who will want to give up assets knowing that Kawhi Leonard will not sign there long-term? That's what it is. How the Thunder got the Pacers to take on a deal? Well, they went the 1 year route. They tried to put George around Russell Westbrook to see how it works. to try to get him to convince him to stay. And you know what? It potentially could work because Paul George hasn't made a decision. He is still considering the Thunder as to remain an option. Otherwise, it was a 1-year risk and gamble. That's what happens with these trades nowadays. Now, if the Lakers do somehow land and end up with Kawhi Leonard, well, the good news is, depending on how much cap space you get back in return, the Lakers will still have the 2 max deals on the table. LeBron James, Paul George, DeMarcus Cousins, DeAndre Jordan. All those guys are still available if Kawhi goes there without giving up too many pieces. And of course, the Lakers, the Spurs want to get something in return. Now, what disadvantage the Spurs have with the Lakers being the top target is trading Kawhi inside the conference. It's not inside the league, it's trading him inside the conference because you're going to have to deal with him at least 4 times a year if you trade him in the West. Now, Popovich is very smart. And I think the good thing is that with Pop's relationships with different people in the front, and R.C. Buford in the front office with the Spurs, not having having a pretty solid relationship around the league, the Spurs are not going to give up everything. It's not going to give up everything. They're going to take something from the Lakers. They're not going to give Kawhi away to the Lakers for nothing. That's what's just going to happen. So, where I think Kawhi is going, I think Kawhi gets moved before the draft. The Spurs are going to have to trade this guy before the draft because you're not going to drag the thing on into the summer. The Spurs, now at this point, if they're going to lose Kawhi Leonard, they're going to see what they get in return, and then you start the game of re-signing Rudy Gay, you start the game of re-signing Danny Green in the situation, and with that being said, the Spurs, can they win? Can they compete? We'll see. I don't know how much they're going to compete without Kawhi Leonard, but the good thing is that if they get enough young pieces back in return, it won't be too far of a fall off. So, as the story breaks and we get more and more out of it, we're going to, I'll be doing a quick little mini pods about this. But for those who just tuned into the pod, let me explain what's just going on. If those catching up to the very end, let's tie the loose ends up together. Kawhi Leonard's asked for a trade today. The Spurs, him and the Spurs have met in New York. R.C. Buford in the front office, Greg Popovich, and reportedly Tim Duncan have all met with Kawhi Leonard's people. Kawhi's requested a trade. Lakers, Clippers, Knicks are on the top of the list because they're all big market teams. Uncle would prefer him playing in the Knicks. Of course, LA is home because that's where Kawhi is from. I think the Sixers and Celtics are, on the next tier. Those 2 teams have the most assets to get back to the Spurs to help them make it more competitive. Of course, the Spurs thinking is get this guy out of this conference. We don't want to deal with him until he gets to the finals. That's why I think the Sixers and Celtics might be in play more, but they have to convince Kawhi to take the extension long term because Sixers and the Celtics will not. And I'll say will not try to get Kawhi Leonard for next to nothing. So, what do you think? What are your opinions on Kawhi? I give you mine. I think at the end of the day, if he is traded, I think it will happen. I think the Lakers will be the destination. I think for me, I like the Clippers. If he will take the extension with the Clippers, I think the Clippers pull the move off. I think he goes play for Jerry West. They resign DeAndre Jordan, and if you get those 2 pieces together, then anything that Jerry West can pull off at that point. Secondary because it is Jerry West, one of the smartest guys in the NBA, and should be in the Hall of Fame for just the fact that he's just one of the best talent evaluators in the league. So, hit me up on Twitter at NBADT29, as well as on Facebook at AroundTheAssociation.com. I have a second podcast today because, like I said, I was at the Wendell Carter Jr. workout today. Got some interesting tidbits about Wendell Carter. I will be at the workout tomorrow. I'll be at the workout tomorrow out here in Atlanta. I think there's a workout scheduled for tomorrow. I will not disclose who is going to be working out tomorrow because I'm not 100% sure yet, and that to be, don't want to leave people on who I know is coming tomorrow, but there is a workout tomorrow, so there'll be a second podcast after the Magic workout tomorrow. So, follow me on Twitter, NBADT29. Leave your comments below. My man BS3 said Kawhi, PG in LA. Listen, this could potentially happen. If that's the case, then, we're going to have a real interesting finals. I mean, Western Conference Finals. Man, a team in Golden State, a team in LA, and a team in Houston. Oakland, LA, and Houston is going to be lit next year. So, leave your little thoughts below like my man BS3 did. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.